here, let me tell you a little bit about myself before we get into the video. My name is Jane. I'm pretty much attached at the hip to my beloved sewing machine. I started to sew 2 years ago and I also got engaged like a year and a half ago, and so I saw my wedding as the perfect opportunity to see how much I could DIY for it. I just graduated college. I'm from Arkansas and I moved states right after I got married with my husband to the Philadelphia region. I think that's everything you would need to know about me before we talk about my wedding. So I hope you enjoy. I am breaking my month-long YouTube hiatus. Actually, it's been a couple months since I've made a video on here. I'm back, basically. And today I want to chat about my wedding because I'm married now. It was the most wonderful, dreamy, amazing night I possibly could have imagined. And I'm really surprised at how everything turned out because if you've been following along, about a few months ago, I think I announced all of my grand plans for this wedding. And I only had a couple months to get it all done and I was very dubious if it could happen, but a lot of it did. Some of it didn't. I'm not gonna lie about that. I think that I was too ambitious when I said I was going to sew whatever I said I was going to sew, and I was proven wrong, kind of, but I also am glad that I set those goals for myself because had I not wanted to do far too much, I wouldn't have got as much done as I did. So grab a cup of coffee and we're gonna talk about my wedding and everything I made for it. I think that this is mostly going to be a pretty chatty video. I'm not sewing anything, but I will include small little clips of all my projects, and there are a few projects that I'll definitely be making more videos about, notably the wedding dress. I made my own wedding dress. I have not shut up about it since I started it, but I did make my own wedding dress and I'm gonna make a video all about that dress. I filmed the entire process. I have been filming for the past couple months. I just haven't gotten around to editing much at all, and so I think I'm gonna include all the separate videos that I filmed for the wedding dress, like the petticoat, embroidering it, making the veil, the headpieces, just put all that in one video. So that'll probably be coming out next week. So stay tuned for that. And there will be photos and videos of the wedding day at this point in the video. So you can jump to there. I won't judge if you just want to see what the actual day looked like. I'm just gonna go in chronological order of projects that I did for my wedding. About 9 months ago, I started by making my save the dates. I painted little images with gouache paint, which is my favorite medium. I'm pretty sure I use Holbein artist gouache. I really should know that. I would get it out, but it's not accessible right now because I just moved, so everything's in boxes. But anyway, I use gouache and I love it. And I painted little images. I painted an image of me and my husband kissing in a big old heart, and I put that on Procreate, and then I like edited the image on Procreate and did some color grading and whatnot. And then I used Canva to add words and then print. Canva is by far the cheapest option to print invites for brides that I have found. I also did my invitations. That was a little bit later on, like I think around March I did my invitations. And for these I went a little bit more boring. I painted an image of the venue where we got married. We got married in the Dreamland Ballroom in Little Rock. It's really beautiful. It was the most amazing wedding venue, but I'll chat about that later. I did just paint a little image of the outside of it to put on our invitations, and then I just did flowers to the front. The invitations, I feel like you need more words on them and less like just the date. So it worked for us. And then my next project was flower girl dresses. So I made 5 flower girl dresses for 5 of my little cousins on my mom's side. They are the sweetest little girls and they ranged in sizes 2 to 6, I want to say. And I did end up buying a pattern for these flower girl dresses, but the pattern that I bought was absolutely an AI pattern. And I have a YouTube video out about these flower girl dresses specifically, which has all of the details for making them, so I won't go too much into it. But I did make 5 of them. I put little flowers made out of scrap material onto the skirt, and I just cut out petals and zigzag stitch around the edge of the petals to keep them from fraying. And I think that they were super cute. The color palette for the flower girl dresses was not quite the same as the color palette for my wedding dress, and I would have made my wedding dress brighter. I wouldn't have changed the flower girl dresses, but all of these dresses fit, which was wonderful because I obviously couldn't do fit checks because I don't live in the same place as any of my cousins, and I think that the girls liked them. I did this all a little bit later on, and then like a week before the wedding I made baskets for the flower girls. I just went to Goodwill and I bought 5 brown straw baskets. I then put like a white organza fabric. It was actually more of like a cotton voile. I don't know what I'm talking about. I put a cotton voile into the flower girl baskets and I sewed that on by hand. It was really difficult with the like getting the thread around the basket. I thought it would be simple, but it actually wasn't. And then I put bows, ribbon bows, all around the edge of them, so they were super kitschy and girly and cute. And then I made little paper hearts. I make these a lot, actually. I just think they're cute and I like to have them around the house. But I just paint paper with like a really thick paint, like maybe a couple layers of acrylic, and then I cut out hearts. The flower girls threw those out during the ceremony, and that was really fun, and I'm glad I did that instead of flowers, actually. Next project for the wedding was a scrap dress. I love using scraps whenever I sew. I think it's so rewarding and fun, and I also can't stand to throw them away. I made a scrap dress out of the scraps from the flower girl dresses and like other projects too. And I used a white organza curtain from Goodwill to make this dress, and I actually think I have a YouTube video out about making this dress as well. Time has really been blending together lately. I've lost track of it completely. It feels like everything prior to the wedding was a whole separate year, but it's actually the same year, and yeah, I did that a couple months ago. I think that this is super pretty. It did make me feel the most like a princess of any of the wedding dresses that I made, and that was a very nice feeling. I really appreciated feeling like a princess. And you know what it is? It's really those like sheer sleeves with the cuffs. Something about that is so medieval in the best way possible. So that was my next project, and I wore this for the sound check at the ballroom. So my husband actually played music. My husband and his singer who's in a band with him, they have a rock band in New York City, and they're still getting started, but their music is so phenomenal and you should go listen to it. I'm getting sidetracked, but they're Captain Birthday and the Undertaker. Anyway, Jean-Michel Letalon came down from New York City to play music for us along with his parents, and they did such an incredible job. So we had a sound check like the day before the wedding at the ballroom. I wore that dress. I didn't do a thing. I just sat around and like admired the pennant banners, which were already hanging up until, but that's what I wore that dress for. And then I made my wedding dress, I think was my next project.
Let me see this.
By May, I really didn't have a wedding dress. So I did decide to start making my wedding dress. I have a video about the toiles for this dress, I do believe, and then I never got around to making many more videos about it, but we'll get to that next week, I promise. So I made like 5, 6 toiles for the dress. It was a really simple silhouette, and I really wanted it to be based on this dress that Givenchy designed for Audrey Hepburn in Funny Face. Edith Head did costume design for the movie, but Givenchy made a lot of Audrey Hepburn's dresses. I think she was pretty particular about working with him. And so I wanted my dress to be basically like this, except I wanted it to have flowers on it, and I didn't really want it to be just a recreation of this dress. I knew that I was gonna use different material, different like layering of tulle, etc. You get the gist. So I made some toiles. I got a fit that I was pretty happy with. I think if I was gonna make this dress again, I wouldn't be happy with the fit. It was a little bit frumpy. I wasn't super happy with the fit of the bodice, although I did try my very best to get it good. Once I had the fit perfected or satisfactory, I started making the dress. I cut out all of my pattern pieces and a full circle skirt with a waist twice the width of the waist of the bodice so that it would be doubly gathered. I made the dress and the skirt, and I cut out 2 layers of tulle for each pattern piece for the dress and covered my polyester Dupioni, which was the fabric that I chose, with the 2 layers of bridal tulle, which I bought at Joann's, RIP. And then I made the petticoat. The petticoat for this dress was crazy. I followed this Frida Leopold tutorial. She released this like a day before I was like scheduled to start the petticoat. I'm not really great at sticking to a schedule, but I did have like a little calendar. This is when you must do this by, and I fell so behind that. But anyway, a base of tulle netting, and then you do tiers, and you just do rectangles for the tiers, and then once you get a certain way up the skirt, you start to switch to circles. And I pretty much went 3/4 of the way up the skirt before I started to add circles. It worked so well for me. The petticoat was a dream. It was perfect. It was a lot of work to cut out that much tulle. It wasn't super difficult to sew it on. I did use my wonderful Singer Heavy Duty that's right back there. It did perfectly with actually most of the sewing for the wedding, but the hardest part was cutting out that much tulle. Then my dad texted and asked if I wanted to go to Colorado with him to go camping. What temperature is it, Dad? 35? Look at all the snow! I said yes. So I went to Colorado for a week. I took the wedding dress with me and I embroidered it in the car and as we were camping, and miraculously it didn't get dirty. Maybe it did, but I was able to brush it off. It was all good. I got a lot of embroidery done while I was in the car on the drive from Arkansas to Colorado and then Colorado to Arkansas. And thankfully my dad likes to drive, so I didn't have to drive at all. So that was just wedding dress embroidery time. And I had so much fun embroidering the dress. I kind of went crazy. So I started with just like the shoulders. I knew that like the beads were gonna trickle down from the top to the waist and they would be like pretty gathered at the waist. And then the beads would trickle up from the skirt. And the flowers. I forgot to mention fabric flowers. I spent a week making fabric flowers and I have a video about this, and this was such a fun process. I purchased a die cutter. I got the Sizzix Big Shot die cutter. It worked great for me, and I got a bunch of flower dies, and I used old scraps of cotton and rayon to make a bunch of flowers, and then I used RIT all-purpose fabric dye to dye the flowers. And this is how they do it in like all the haute couture studio atelier videos that I've watched online, which is why I had to do it, and it was such a fun process. I'm pretty sure they use like 100% silk for everything, but I can't afford that, so I did cotton, and it was good. It worked really well. A lot of people have also asked me, how do you keep these from fraying? They have not frayed. I sprayed them with a whole lot of heavy duty spray on starch, and I didn't have any problems. I also ironed them after I dyed them to set the dye and also give them a little bit of shape. And if you want to really give them shape, you need to purchase one of these things. It's a heat wand with the flower tip. I didn't get one of those, and I didn't really need it. I'm glad I didn't purchase it because I did have to purchase a whole lot of other supplies for these projects. So it was fine for me, but if you want to do it really legit, get one of those. Once me and my dress and my flowers and my beads got back from Colorado, it was really crunch time because I only had 2 weeks before I moved out of my apartment. I was living in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is where the University of Arkansas is. I went to the University of Arkansas. It's kind of freeing being able to share all this personal information online because it's not relevant anymore. So I only had a few weeks left. I knew I didn't really want to set up like my entire sewing studio back home. I just wanted to get as much done as possible while I was in that studio. So I got the dress all put together, the petticoat, the outer shell, and a complete full lining for the dress, which included the same structure for the skirt. And I'm so glad I did. The dress was super comfortable to wear because the inside of it was really clean. The dress all put together, and I still had a ton of embroidery to do. I was working on embroidering the dress up until I think a week before the wedding. I also went to Little Rock, and then I came up to Pennsylvania and New York City with my little brother and my husband, well, fiance, and we did a little trip, and we went to New York and had some fun and went fabric shopping, and we also went to Virginia actually. It's been a crazy couple months. So the dress came with me to all those places. My wedding dress is really well traveled. Moving on, that project was wrapped up. I got it done. And next, I had to do pennant banners, which were crazy. I actually did film an entire video for these, and I am gonna edit it. Promise. I made 650 feet of them. I'm fairly certain. I've lost my sheet of measurements. I had a pretty dense sheet to figure out exactly how many triangles I needed and how many feet of bias tape and all this. But I made these. My grandmother actually helped me a lot. She did 4 of the strands and I did 10, and she offered to do more. I just didn't want to put too much of a burden on her, and family friends helped out. My brothers helped out. Now I have 2 boxes of pennant banners in the garage, and I don't know what to do with them. Next, I made a dress for my best friend, Natalie. I purchased this daisy cotton fabric from a thrift store in Flagstaff, Arizona last summer, and I've been saving it for the perfect project. And the perfect project was a dress for my best friend, and we designed it together. I wanted to do a halter top. I just thought it would look pretty on her, and she said yes. So I took her measurements, and I made a toile, and it fit her, and I made the dress. And this was a pretty simple project. It is fully lined. It's actually like, I think I put in 2 linings just to make sure it was comfortable for her. At this point, I was super stressed. We're like 3 weeks before the wedding, maybe. I know I'm kind of jumping around. The timeline's complex. I'll put a little image right here of like what was going on before the wedding, because it's really confusing. It was a lot of jumping around between Arkansas, Pennsylvania, Arkansas. Anyway, it wasn't a lot, but it just felt like a lot because the wedding's super stressful anyway. So I had the pennant banners actually not done. I had to fly home to Arkansas like a week and a half before the wedding because I wasn't supposed to arrive to Arkansas until like 3 days before the wedding. I had to change my plans around, go back to Arkansas early, finish up the pennant banners, and then I was home, and I decided I needed to make a reception dress. I never thought that I would be one of the kind of people that wants to change during the wedding. I just didn't plan on it. It's not that I'm opposed to it. I think the most dresses possible you could wear for your wedding is wonderful. Why not wear a bunch of dresses instead of just one? But I wasn't planning on it, and then I found this like blue polka dot organza at this little store in Floyd, Virginia, and I found this blue, turquoise blue. I want to say taffeta, but I'm not even sure. It was in the clearance section because it had damages on it. So I bought those two fabrics and I decided to make my something blue a dress, like a crazy party dress. My inspiration was really this bubble dress that I've already made, plus this Molly Goddard dress. I felt like a present wrapped up, not necessarily in a good way. I don't know how I feel about this dress, and I haven't really put it on since the wedding, so maybe I'll feel differently now, but it was like a lot. In a good way, maybe it was just ruched and one-shouldered and felt 80s, but also just like a present. I'm still making up my mind about this dress, but I did make it like a few days before the wedding. Very stressful. And I self-drafted it. I did a bubble skirt, a full skirt with like half skirt underneath out of the lining to ruche that skirt in. It was super fun. While I was in Pennsylvania, like a couple weeks before the wedding, I decided to make a wedding sign, and I like in the back of my mind, I think I knew I wanted to do all of these things. I just didn't plan on them, like out of sight, out of mind. If you're not thinking about it, if you're not planning on it, it'll just miraculously get done, which is not true. You have to plan on doing things in order to get them done. So I did buy a canvas from Michael's. It was 2 by 3 feet, and I made a sign saying, "Welcome to the wedding of Jane and Andrew," and I think my sign was cute. My thing was, like, this is still a disappointment for me about the wedding. So we had, the ballroom was in the upstairs of this building. You park on street level and you have to go upstairs. And I wanted to do like a Disney style cartoon staircase image, like another canvas to go downstairs saying like party upstairs, but I didn't get around to that. And I wish I could have, like it could have been so cool. I just never got around to it, but I did do just one sign and it was cute, I guess. I liked it. We still have it. I'm not sure what to do with it. I think I want to repaint it, repurpose it. It was a really cheap canvas, but that was a fun little project. Nice to take a break from sewing and do some painting. In the same way that I decided I did want to do a party dress, I realized I needed a dress to wear for the day of the wedding. I decided to make us patchwork pieces, and these I wanted to pull my hair out by the time I was done with them, because basically posted sham quilt made into a full circle skirt, not a half circle skirt. I had to do a full circle skirt. I started this project a week before my wedding and I thought I'm gonna get this done in a day so I can get to my other stuff that I absolutely have to get done, like my guest book. We'll get to the guest book in a little bit. I didn't realize it takes forever to sew 2 by 2 inch squares together for an entire full circle skirt, but I made a dress. It was pretty simple silhouette. I based it off of this dress that Doris Day is wearing in this photo, which I have no idea where it's from because it's from Pinterest, and Pinterest never gives credit for anything. But that was the dress that I made, and it did take a really long time, and I was so frustrated with it by the time that I like wrapped it up. It's also fully lined because the inside of it would obviously be like pretty messy, and I wanted to put a petticoat in. I did not have time to do a petticoat. My husband has the craziest shirt collection. I think he's got much better style than I do, and I make clothes all the time, but he really prefers whenever I make him shirts that they be a little bit thicker and be cropped and tailored in the back to closely fit him. Will not try to do that again in that amount of time, and it doesn't help when you're stressed about something and you're trying to get it done faster. It just doesn't actually help you get it done faster. So one of my last projects, actually I think my last project, was making a guest book. I just knew that I wanted ours to be more scrapbook style. I wanted to put a lot of paintings inside of it, drawings, doodles. I also painted all of these little photo frames out of gouache, and I cut those out and I printed a bunch of photos at Walgreens, and then I put those in the guest book with the little handmade photo frames, and I think they turned out super cute. And then I like kind of wrote out our story in like a big brush pen. So I think the guest book was cute. It took a lot of time and it didn't turn out as good as I wanted because it was such a last minute project. That was what I was working on like right before the wedding. I think that wraps up all of my wedding projects. A few last minute things were just like name cards to put on the tables. I made those myself because I didn't even think about them until like the day before the wedding, and I realized that we did want to reserve some tables and reserve some seats during the ceremony for friends and family. I didn't make these garments for the wedding, but we ended up wearing them at the rehearsal dinner, and that was my alien abduction pieces. They're some of my favorite things that I've made thus far. I think they're made from scrap fabric, of course, underneath a layer of tulle. And then I did make this white t-shirt for myself. I made that a couple days before the wedding because I wanted a white t-shirt and I just didn't own one, and I didn't want to buy one online. So that was like my last project, I think. Let's see how many garments that is in total. Flower girl dresses plus Natalie's dress plus my scrap fabric dress plus my wedding dress. Dresses for the day of the wedding. I think that gives us 12 garments, but I could be mistaken. Plus all the decoration. So yeah, I would say that's an admirable effort. Biggest regret is not starting it sooner, and also not like doing things to the best of my ability just because I put them off for so long. If you're choosing to do this much for your wedding yourself, or if you're choosing to do a lot of things for your wedding yourself, I would just say start early and do whatever you want because it's your wedding. And I've seen so many fun projects online from people's weddings of like quilts that they hang up with their date or like their names. It's just so much fun. I love seeing all of the hashtag DIY brides. That's so silly, but I was using that hashtag a lot during this like month, 2-month process, hashtag DIY bride. But anyway, without any further ado, enjoy some footage of my wedding.
Got it. Sister, son. This is my favorite one. Okay, Jane, you're about to walk down the aisle. It's gonna be okay. Deep breaths. You got this. You look gorgeous. Stunning. Last video.